Ladies and gentlemen, your new football weekend tradition sweeping the nation as we slowly approach the beginning of the 2022 NFL season. It's another episode of the Sports Agents of Chaos podcast. You guys already know when the weekend hits, whether it's Saturday or Sunday, schedule pending, that we are here to provide the football analysis. We are here to have some fun, and we are here to spread all the chaos in the world. And we might get some chaos today, as this week, ladies and gentlemen, as my phone goes off, we have the AFC East divisional breakdown. Yes, the Sports Agents of Chaos podcast weekly NFL divisional breakdown is here. It is in full effect. We are more than halfway done. Well, we are not going to be officially more than halfway done with the divisions by the time this episode is completed, and we are wholly excited for that. We've gone over the Souths, we've gone over the Norths. Now we head to the East, far to the East, and we start, per tradition, with the AFC. And of course, as always, I am joined by a panel of experts, of football savants, connoisseurs, if you will. Starting, as always, with our guy. This is his flu game, ladies and gentlemen. Our guy, Justin Zucker. Justin, how we do? You're powering through a lot, brother. We appreciate you.
Listen, it's just good to be back. It's been a rough week, so excited. This is the week I've been looking forward to for a long time now.
Oh, this might be it's a much anticipated podcast, to say the least, both for us and I think for the people as they've learned about the fandom of you two in particular. And I'm going to assume our third guest as well. Also joining us, as always, with the beautiful backwards hat, with the beautiful pink shirt as well. He makes pink look good, ladies and gentlemen. Pink men wear pink. This man can wear any color. Podfather Rick. Rick, how we doing?
Yeah, I mean, I am a fan of the tropical colors. There's also little light blue sea turtles on here as well. I just have one question: how am I the most awake of the four of us on this podcast? I really don't understand how that's a thing. I mean, Justin, I get the flu, but I mean, I don't know. Jurgen, you might have had an overnight or something. But
I'm running on less than 6 hours of sleep.
Oh, good. Well, then in that case, yeah, that makes sense. Then, yeah, definitely. I'm good. I'm good. Otherwise, it's good to be back and good to be talking something near and dear and close to my heart for sure. So,
yes, and when he says that, he means Baker Mayfield, because this has been the most emotionally invested thing that Rick has seen in the NFL in a while.
Absolutely.
And our last guest, ladies and gentlemen, the most professional, because he's had zero internet issues. Rick says he's the most awake. I would argue that with our final guest here, ladies and gentlemen, and the new trivia champion of the Sports Agents of Chaos podcast, who we were introduced to last week, Sandoval, is here with us. He is a man, or dear, a few words, and he's just going to go about his business today. Where we do have trivia to start things off. We got a quick round of trivia before we talk Baker in the AFC East, and Sandoval is just going to handle his business, because that's what Sandoval does, ladies and gentlemen. That's what he's all about. So we're not going to waste any time.
I'm intimidated. I'm scared right now.
we're not going to waste any time, ladies and gentlemen. We have it right away. I did it temporarily last week, but I can never do it as good as this man. Justin, trivia has returned. This is your thing, my friend. The future host of insert name of your favorite game show in America right here, ladies and gentlemen. Justin, let's get it going.
Well, it's good to be back. And after last week's trivia question, it got me thinking. And I had to look up. There are a number of great quarterbacks have thrown a ton of touchdowns in their first 2 years as a quarterback. Tied for fourth place, in fact, are Russell Wilson and Peyton Manning with 52. Can you give me the top three?
So already, Russ and Peyton, like that just lets you know the company, the caliber of company that we're thinking of here. You said first 2 seasons, right? Okay, first 2 seasons. Okay, so I think I'd seen something about this at work. So Rick, I'm just going to throw it out to you, because he had an outstanding second year. Justin Herbert was.
Yeah.
I'm just going to say that as one of the answers right here. I think Justin Herbert has to be on that list, because he had 20 plus in his rookie season. He had almost 40 last year. Like, he's got to be up there. So, Justin, our first answer to submit is Justin Herbert. Are we correct?
In first place with 69 total touchdowns in his first 2 seasons, Justin Herbert set a record last year.
Wow.
Beautiful.
That's excellent. That was a good shout out too. It made a lot of sense. And I think AFC West is probably going to be the home of these winners, just because the way that the offensive styles are, I think. So I'm gonna go with what I think could be an obvious choice, but maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. Pat Mahomes.
Patrick Mahomes is one of 3 people tied at 6th place with 50 touchdowns. He's not one of the top 3.
Wow.
Yeah, because so the funny thing is that
He didn't really play his
when
first season.
yeah his
Yeah,
his
that's
first
true.
season he only played that final game. Like in terms of starting,
But
he only started that final game.
but just think about that for a second. You're talking about a guy who only played one game in his final season and yet still has 50 touchdowns in his first 2.
Yeah.
I mean, that's fairly impressive, I think.
Yeah,
So
that second
yeah.
year.
It's touchdowns that second season, didn't he? I don't even think he threw one the first season.
Yeah, I think it was all that season.
Yeah, that's amazing.
So
Yeah.
That's amazing to me. Yeah.
Mahomes just continues to prove he's on another level compared to everyone else. All right, so we got Herbert, we got Russ, we got Peyton. So now
You think so? Really? You think so?
He's talking Sandoval. He's definitely talking Sandoval.
Okay. All right. You want me to tell him? Okay, I'll let him know.
Oh yeah, Justin. Rick is the official translator of Sandoval because we don't
I
talk
speak deer. Just in case you're
yeah.
wondering. Yeah. So Sandoval lambasted me because he said, "How dare you? You're talking about the AFC East this week, and you're not forgetting one of the premier quarterbacks in AFC East history in this list." And he looked at me kind of squirrely because he's a deer, and he said, "Dan Marino."
Ah, interesting. In second place, Dan Marino threw 68 touchdowns in his first 2 seasons.
Wow. Look at that.
This damn deer is making me look terrible. Yeah, Jurg, we have to revive Stump the Schwab and make it Stump the Sandoval instead.
Oh, you know what? I think this trivia might become that.
I think so.
Oh god,
Jesus,
that's amazing. So Sandoval is 3 for 3 now in trivia all time. So
this is frightening.
We're gonna keep that. We're gonna keep that counter running. So we'll see.
Yeah.
We'll see how that holds. Maybe Sandoval gets the last quarterback here. So we got Justin Herbert. We got Dan Marino. We got first and second right there. We know Russ and Payton are 4th and 5th, tied for 4th, whatever. So this is the bronze medal here. This is the last of the podium.
Yeah.
So we really got to go through the Rolodex here, Rick, of guys who just balled out both years, but maybe one year more in particular.
More so than the rest. Yeah, maybe. You know who might be a good shot for me? And this is not an official guess, but this could be a good shot. Jameis Winston, maybe?
Maybe. I think the problem is with Jameis is that the season when he did the 30 for 30, I think that may have been the first ever season he threw for 30 plus touchdowns. So I think
maybe, yeah.
That's my only thing, because I know his rookie season he got a bit above 20. Year 2 is a fog to me for him. So I'm not sure about Jameis. I was going to say, because I think his rookie season, he was up there. I forget how he did in year 2, but Andrew Luck I think was a name to consider because he came out right at the gate. He did.
Yeah. I mean that's a possibility too. I just don't know if he was hurt at all during those 2 seasons. That might have cost him, because I also feel like maybe they started Curtis Painter for a game because Luck was just still too green at the time, so maybe he lost a little traction there. But Luck's not a bad shout. It's one of those things where I hate to throw in like a quarterback that could be a joke name, but Blake Bortles maybe. Because his first 2 seasons he was pretty solid.
Yeah,
he was pretty solid.
I think I wanted. Maybe it was in year 2. There was a season. It was either year 2 or 3 of his career. I'm forgetting which one it was, but year 2 or 3 of his career, he threw for well over 30 touchdowns, and that was the season where everyone was like, "Oh, did Blake Bortles figure it out? Do the Jaguars have their quarterback of the future?"
That was season, right?
He didn't figure it out, and they didn't have their quarterback of the future. But it was a nice thought at the time.
At the time, he was really proving everybody wrong. or he was
Yeah.
proving the people that were high on his selection right. Which, looking back, like how many people were fans of the Blake Bortles selection at the time?
Oh,
Who knows?
I can't. Well, I mean, all of Florida was. It was a Central Florida kid who went to Jacksonville, so it made sense. But Florida, like the 1970s with Liberace trying to find the right girl, had a lot to learn.
That's a hell of a reference.
Yes, it
So
is.
I'm going to. This is my official guess for this one. I'm going to submit Andrew Luck as my guess for this one, Justin.
Andrew Luck is not on this list.
Damn it! Really? Wow.
Didn't make the top 6. Well, tied for 6. How many people are here? 3, 5, 8. Didn't make the top 8.
Really?
Right,
Wow.
according to this list, at least.
That's. I want to go back. I continue, Rick. I want to just double check real quick.
What do you think? Oh, you have your answer, but you want me to guess wrongly again. Okay. This guy's a jerk, honestly. I don't know why they keep him on here. You know, I'm thinking there might be a theme here to this whole conversation here. I'm gonna stick my neck out for Baker Mayfield. Maybe he's a shout possibility.
Interesting. That's your official guess?
Yes, that's my official guess.
Oh, no. Baker Mayfield did not make the list.
Can't wait for Sandoval to just wreck us.
And
Stop laughing at me over there.
Andrew Luck had 46 touchdowns.
Yeah, I just checked it. He's another guy that had, 40 was his. You know what? Actually, hold on. I got more research to do because I'm out this round. Sandoval's probably going to carry us, but I got to check something here.
Yeah. Sandoval just made fun of me again. He said to me, you mentioned the AFC West, and yet you didn't stick with that for your next pick. So clearly the hat you're wearing is too tight, and the shirt you're wearing is too loud for you to think clearly. So he's just messing with me right now. But Sandoval has the guess of Derek Carr from the Raiders.
Sandoval is 4 for 4. Derek Carr has 53 touchdowns in his first 2 seasons. If you guys remember, he came out on fire.
Right.
He did.
He was very quickly made one of the highest paid quarterbacks in the league before he had that ankle injury.
Yeah. And like a boss, he just left.
Yeah,
because he got it all right. His work is done, so he's gone.
Sandoval don't need us anymore. He's like, I'm 4 for 4. I'm doing my thing.
I'm out. Goodbye. Really, Sandoval? Great.
Ladies and gentlemen, so that was another rousing edition of trivia, and once again, Sandoval proves that he is the king of trivia here on the Sports Agents Chaos Podcast. What a guy! What a deer! What a insert
that was such a drop the mic moment too. Like he gets it right and just leaves.
Just by the way, guys, you did mention Jameis Winston is also tied for 6 with Patrick Mahomes at 50, and the last one that you guys didn't mention was Carson Palmer.
Oh, okay.
Also tied at 50.
Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah, that makes a ton of sense. So, ladies and gentlemen, we are not going to waste any time. We move right forward here on this podcast. But Baker Mayfield, we've talked about a lot about quarterback movement this offseason, especially on this podcast, and we're here to speak about it again because finally, somebody got moved. Baker Mayfield was finally traded from the Cleveland Browns factory of sadness to I don't know what the comparison would be for the Carolina Panthers. Not a factory. Let's try to think of another work environment. Maybe an office.
Panthers factory of sadness.
An office space.
How about a plantation of agony?
Jesus, agony. Okay.
Well, I mean, it's Carolina. I mean, the one Super Bowl the 2 Super Bowls they went to didn't go very well for them. So, I mean,
You know what? Fair. I'm going to call it a farm personally, just because I actually like the idea of Baker Mayfield on a farm for some reason. I don't know why. That's just a funny visual in my head. But the farm of the agony is where Baker Mayfield is going to now, ladies and gentlemen, as he is traded from the Cleveland Browns to the Carolina Panthers. The Browns had to pay $10.5 million of his salary. So there's that for the season. That's highly entertaining to say the very least. And the Carolina Panthers didn't have to give up much. They had to just give up a conditional 5th-round pick, which the condition is if he plays, I believe the number is 70%, it will be moved up to a 4th-round pick. Not even in this next draft. I think it's 2024 actually is the pick, which makes it all the more entertaining. So there's that. We have been waiting for this trade for a while, fellas, and now it's finally come upon us. Rick, I'm going to let you start things off here. What are your thoughts about Baker Mayfield finally being traded and Carolina being the team that gets him?
Well, I mean, it really just solidifies the fact that I believe that Cleveland has really dug themselves into a significant hole, number one, because you're going to be on the hook for paying Baker Mayfield and for Deshaun Watson. If you're Cleveland, you're still on the hook for that salary. So there's all of that. To me, I think this was the best case scenario for Baker. I mean, as much as I love the idea of him possibly going to Seattle at some point, I feel like the Carolina is going to give him the best chance to win, the best chance to be a significant factor for his development and his career plans. I think it was a great move. I think it was something that was necessary. And I think too, in a way, if you think about it, it gets a quarterback into that Carolina room at the soonest possible time, because we still don't really know what Jimmy Garoppolo's status is about his injury. We don't know about how he's progressing. We don't really have an idea about, where he's going to be, able to come out in week one or not. And we also don't know about that $137.5 million albatross that's around his neck. So to me, I think this was a great move. It adds a little bit of diversity into that quarterback room with Sam Darnold and with Justin's favorite Matt Corral. I think it adds a little bit of parity there as well too. And again, I think it's the best move for Carolina. We talked about it in the NFC South divisional preview week where I made that notation while I was driving that if Carolina got Baker Mayfield, they would probably win 2 more games. They would probably be a better team. I think this does make them a better team. I feel like this adds to a possible, maybe not a wild card run yet, just because I feel like Tampa Bay and New Orleans are still so good that Carolina is going to probably be the third best team that's there. But now they've made the margin a little bit smaller. I feel like now they've made it a little bit easier for Robbie Anderson and DJ Moore and Christian McCaffrey to have better seasons, because now you have a quarterback who may be as reckless as Sam Darnold, but at the same time, he'll have a little bit more pedigree and know how to win games, unlike what Sam Darnold could do. So I feel like this was a good move. This was the right move for Carolina. And I think it's something that could save Matt Rule's job. It truly could save Matt Rule's job, I think. And it's an interesting maneuver. And I think it ends the saga of where the hell is Baker Mayfield going to play this season. And It's Carolina. It's Charlotte. So good for him.
Right. It answered that question. I do want to get to the Matt Rule aspect here in a couple moments of whenever Justin wants to give his piece. I'll give my 2 cents on it really fast. I wasn't surprised, especially once the Seattle news came out earlier this week, that he was essentially just done with it, or that they were essentially done with it. Then it felt like there was one team and one team only. And as we know, fellas, whenever it just gets down to one team negotiating, there's a lot of leverage on that side. And they were able to leverage the Cleveland Browns to paying majority of Baker's salary and also not having to give up that much, which made a lot of sense. And I felt no matter what the pick going back was going to be, there was always going to be some sort of condition on it based off of playing time, considering Baker has had the injury issues, especially last season, with his Browns tenure and career as a whole. For like you said, Rick, I think we all were very much agreed on it. We think the Panthers are a bit better with Baker on the team. How much so is the big question. It depends on what his health status really is. We're assuming he's healthy and going to be healthy going into the season. And also now he's got to learn a new playbook with a new coach, get a new rapport with receivers, DJ Moore and others of the like. Robbie Anderson could kick rocks for all I care. As I've said, Robbie Anderson retires. I'm not losing any sleep if I'm a Carolina Panthers fan and Robbie Anderson don't want to play with Baker Mayfield. So it doesn't necessarily bother me in any which way. I think Baker, you say yourself, Rick, he's the most talented quarterback in that room now. I think he has the highest upside there. Well, aside from should have been XFL MVP PJ Walker, I think he has the highest upside there. And I think this is a big chance here for Baker to really rehabilitate everything in terms of potentially being a starter again. I think this is my mindset. If you have at least started 2 to 3 seasons in the NFL, I think you can prove yourself to be a backup. I think like Jameis, Sam Darnold, Baker, I think they are all for sure backup quarterbacks for the rest of their career, no matter what happens within the next season. But I think what this is for Baker is his last chance to prove that, someone should take a flyer on him to potentially start. And I think this is very critical considering you have next season with the upcoming rookie quarterback draft class. Like, we always have new rookies come in. And I feel like last season with 5 first-round quarterbacks, and then this upcoming year where we could get 3, 4, 5 more, I really think this is kind of a make or break season for a lot of quarterback situations here. And, especially the young quarterbacks we had drafted this year that maybe weren't first round picks. I think that there's also an argument to be made for those kids as well. But I think this is a critical season for Baker and himself and where his career could go the rest of the way. So I think that's something to talk about right there. Now, like I said, other angle, I will let Justin take over this because he's been a big proponent of this man being on the hot seat this year. But Justin, Matt Rule, and this being a big season for him, for this team to step up. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think it's a great move by the Panthers. It's like a can't miss kind of thing. You didn't give anything up. You're not paying the majority of his salary, and you get a guy that took a perennial bad team to the playoffs in the past. It's funny because to me, the Carolina Panthers were always kind of like a very similar team to the Browns, in which they had a very strong defense. They had a really good running game. Their offensive line maybe wasn't as solid, and I don't think they had the level of receiver, but they've addressed that in the past couple of years. And adding a guy like Baker, who could maybe put you in control of a wild card spot, maybe in November, maybe saves Matt Rule another year. Maybe, I'm not saying it's going to work out. I'm not saying that they're definitely going to make the playoffs, but they gave up a 5th round pick and they're not paying him. He's getting paid by the Browns to beat the Browns week 1. So it's really a can't miss move for me. If I'm the Carolina Panthers, if it doesn't work out, I'm pretty sure he's a free agent next year, right? So there's literally no downside to anything that they've done just now, minus maybe pissing off Robbie Anderson. But Robbie Anderson's not going to retire. He was trying to be – I believe him when he said he was trying to be a good teammate and support Sam, even though he didn't necessarily do it in a great way. But listen, what could be really bad? It'll motivate Sam to play better. I still think Baker takes the starting job, and if it's no good – again, you see what you have with Matt Corral, and then you're right in the running for another quarterback next year. So at that point, though, you might have a hard reset, and Matt Rule might be out of there. But hey, listen, it could be. It's worth the experiment. It's worth the shot in the dark, I think.
Well, I mean, I think we agree, Rick. Like if you're the Panthers, there's no reason not to take the risk at this point because. No. Like what is there to lose? Like the new owner David Tepper has really put an emphasis the last couple seasons on them finding a quarterback, and maybe not. They might finally have their guy here in Baker, so we'll see.
Look, I mean, I think that Sam Darnold was never truly the answer in Carolina, and I think this quarterback is the most exciting quarterback prospect the Panthers have had since they drafted Cam Newton. I mean, I think, Matt Corral could be a starter at some point, but I think at the same time, that time's not happening right now. It's not. And I mean, as much as we want to give Sam Darnold some love, look, Baker Mayfield's just a more talented quarterback than he is. XFL MVP PJ Walker to one side and the pride of Elon College, Davis Cheek to one side. I think that this is Baker Mayfield's team now. And I think they also the Panthers also added in free agency a couple of good wide receivers from the Browns, Rashard Higgins, and from the Chargers, Andre Roberts, which I think also adds the fact that Baker Mayfield's got somebody who he can throw the ball to that he knows in Rashard Higgins. Sure, I don't know how long he was on the Browns for, but it's still somebody who he can throw the ball to and who he knows. So I think that's an easier pill to swallow for a guy who's going to a brand new mindset. And again, I mean, if you really truly look at what Carolina's done, I mean, their offensive line looks pretty solid. I mean, they drafted Ike Ekwonu in the first round this year, so he's gonna be able to block for a strong guy like Baker Mayfield. You've got a couple good running backs there, and you've got a decent tight end in the ever popular name Tommy Tremble, which is just a phenomenal name. But it also adds credence to the fact that this first game of the season, you're hosting Cleveland. So Baker knows those guys. So you got to think that at some point now, with the acrimonious nature of how he left Cleveland and how they did him wrong, he's now going into that defensive room. He's now going to defensive coordinator Phil Snow and saying, look, this is how you beat the Browns. This is the offense. I can tell you all about this. And then he's going to Ben McAdoo, for some ungodly reason, he's the O coordinator, and saying, look, this is who's on defense for them. This is who we can beat, et cetera, et cetera. So I think if Carolina comes out in week 1 and blows up Cleveland and you have Baker Mayfield just running roughshod all over that defense, I think what that does is that really puts a final nail in the coffin, and it just gives Baker Mayfield that whole, like, just that at peace moment, that savasana moment from yoga, that like, I'm in a good spot now, and I'm going to prove to this Carolina fan base that I'm going to be your quarterback. I'm Jake Delhomme 2.0. We're going to go to the Super Bowl in my second or third year. And then I'm going to have like 10 more years where I'm not that great, but I'll have won 3 playoff games for you, which is more than any other quarterback in Carolina can say.
I would have thought Cam Newton has a few more than
no.
3 playoff games.
I you know what?
Really?
It's you would think so, but no. Cam Newton as starting quarterback for so Delhomme as a quarterback went 4-3 in the playoffs. Cam Newton went 3-4. And then the only other QB that's been to the playoffs with them was Kerry Collins back in 1996, and he was 1-1. So Jake Delhomme has the most playoff quarterback wins in Carolina, which is saying something.
There goes next week's trivia.
Yep.
Death taxes and Kerry Collins somehow being brought up for I think the 4th episode in a row.
No, Justin, I've got your trivia question for you next week. Name the 4 starting quarterbacks in Carolina in 2007. The number 1 guy will surprise you.
There's Rick's trivia for next week, ladies and gentlemen. I mean, I think I speak for all of us, and this is at least my mindset with that week 1 game for Browns Panthers. Either A, Baker's going to throw for 400 yards and total 4 touchdowns, and the Panthers are going to smack him, or the Browns are going to sack him 7 times and pick him off 3 times, and that'll be the end of his career. It's one or the other. I don't think there's such a thing as an in between there. To say the very least. Do we have any last comments about Baker to Carolina, lads? Does Sandoval want to say anything, or is he just here so he won't get fined like Marshawn Lynch?
Sandoval just does trivia, man. He doesn't do any current news or updates, and I think partially he's actually watching Wimbledon right now on the computer screen. He's not really even paying attention to our conversation. But
love it, love it. I mean, Sandoval is here to keep the order of things.
Yeah, so. And by the way, now I have to look down like this to talk to Sandoval because Justin's internet's been going in and out. So instead of me turning the other way, I have to look down and to talk to him. He's not even paying attention to me, so it's okay.
It's the best. It's the best. We're thankful for everything up with the show.
We'll let the goddamn Brady bunch in with the squares.
Oh, who's going to be the next member? That's a question. Moving on. Speaking of what used to be the Brady bunch, the bunch of teams that Tom Brady used to beat up on, and that is the Dolphins, the Bills, and the Jets. He got to beat up on those teams for 2 decades while he was a member of the New England Patriots. Seamless transition there, Rick. I know you like it.
Yeah.
We have the AFC East this week on the Sports Agents of Chaos NFL divisional breakdown. Like I said, on a week-by-week basis here, ladies and gentlemen, we've gone through the divisions. We have gone team by team, given our analysis, and then at the very end, we give our division standings. And then once we go through all the divisions, we will have an episode where we give you all our full playoff breakdown. May have to rewatch some of the ending of the episodes to see who I thought are wild card favorites, to say the very least, because I think a good amount of teams we're going to call wild card favorites, quote unquote. But that's for us to worry about. We have the AFC East here, ladies and gentlemen, and I think, let's not waste any time here, boys. I think the team to start the conversation with is the team that was the most active in this division in the offseason, and that was the Miami Dolphins in terms of making big impact moves, in terms of really ramping things up. A new head coach in Mike McDaniel coming from the San Francisco 49ers and the Kyle Shanahan coaching tree, which is an extension of the Mike Shanahan coaching tree. It's like a great big oak, just a bunch of branches on there, and they're all extending from each other. There's him. You have Teron Armstead, who they signed this past season to really beef up that offensive line that has been critical in terms of their poor performance really means that Tua can't be as effective as a passer as many feel. And then, of course, the big move of Tyreek Hill being traded there in the offseason, really coming out of nowhere, at least for us. I remember that day when the news broke. It had been building for a while, but we only found that day of when all that was happening. So what an ordeal that was. Justin, I'm going to start with you. Thoughts on the Miami Dolphins? They had a good defense last season. We think on paper they still have a good defense. But clearly, the focus was on the offense, going all in on Tua, going all in on that offense. We'll see. What are your thoughts on the Dolphins for this upcoming season?
My thoughts are we're going to see what Tua is really made of. I mean, obviously, it all depends on whether or not he's healthy, but they've made it very clear. If Tua is not the guy, excuse me, if Tua's not the guy, we're going to find out this year. They have left him no excuses. They've revamped the offensive line. They've signed running backs. They've added top talent at receivers. They brought back his favorite target in the tight end, and Mike Gesicki. Jalen Waddle is coming into the season healthy. They should be the fastest receiving core in the league, and they're going to be hard to cover. And we're going to find out what Tua is really made of. Is he as accurate as Tyreek is trying to make him out to be? Is he going to be able to stay on the field and find these guys, and really put up points like they haven't been able to do in long stretches in the past 2 years? Or is he gonna bottom out, and we're gonna see the Dolphins in the league in the hunt for a quarterback next year? Because remember, they've left themselves in prime position to trade up next year for a quarterback. They still have 2 first-round picks. They got their first-round pick next year. They have a plethora of later round picks. They are in prime position to move anywhere they want to in the draft next year. So it's going to be interesting. I see the Dolphins as a fringe playoff team this year. If not for anything, they have an easy schedule. I mean, as much as I want to say the Jets are going to be good this year, they play the Jets twice. They play the Lions. They play the Bears. They play the Browns. They play the Texans. They're going to have a few gimme games on this. So if you see the Dolphins hovering around 500 in November, there might be an issue, because that in November, later in their season, that's when their schedule really seems to get a little stronger, and they might be in a lot of trouble if they're not doing well later in the season.
Mm-hmm.
If they have a run like they did last year,
right,
where they lose like 8 or 6, even if they lose like 5 in a row in the middle of their season, they come back. I think they play the Chargers, the Packers, the Bills, and
that's murderers row
in a row in like the last 5 or 6 games of the season. So we'll see. They benefit maybe by playing the Jets last game of the year, but it's really going to be interesting to see what they do right in the beginning and see if they can get off to a hot start, because that'll really determine their playoff chances.
Agreed. And I think, Justin, you could even I think even 3 losses in a row for any teams here in the AFC that are not the division winners is going to be really killer for their playoff odds, because you have so many good teams, as we talked about. I think even a 3-game losing streak is going to just hurt you so much during the season. So I think that's something. But I will say, when you talk about the gimme games, Rick's NFC North champion Detroit Lions, my boy, Rick will have something to say about that. So Rick, I will let you take over here. What are your thoughts about the Dolphins for 2022 and the fact that they're probably not going to beat the Lions when they face?
How dare you, Justin? How dare you? Look,
well, they play them early, so I figured maybe the Lions don't put it together right away.
Early, they play them in week 8. If the Lions don't have it together by week 8, there's an issue here. But look, okay, let me start off with a sentence that might be a little eyebrow raising, but I think it's important. I think this is the most important preseason to watch in the NFL, because if I'm the Miami Dolphins, I want Tua Tagovailoa to play as much preseason football as possible. I want him to play a half in each game against Tampa, the Raiders, and the Eagles, because I want to make sure that he has a full game in him. I want him to start off maybe the first half against Tampa and sit the second half, then sit the first half against the Raiders, and then play the second half. Then maybe throw him in the first quarter and the fourth quarter against Philadelphia. Get him some acumen and some fast play with this receivers that he's got. Because you're right. This is Tua Tagovailoa's one shot. He does not have a second go around after this. If he does not make it work, then he was the problem, not Brian Flores, and he's the one that needs to go. I know they have Teddy Bridgewater, but I'm not going to say that Teddy Bridgewater is going to become the savior, because we all know that Jurg's favorite quarterback, Skylar Thompson, is going to be the savior in the 7th round of this year. Miami also added a 4-headed monster when it comes to their running backs. They have Myles Gaskin, but they added Raheem Mostert, they added Sony Michel, they added Chase Edmonds. There's really no excuse, if you're Tua Tagovailoa, to not have a stellar offensive season. What might be a problem for him is the part of the ball that he can't control, which is that defensive side. Because if you're Miami on defense, sure, you have Xavier Howard, who I think up until maybe last week or a week and a half ago was the highest paid cornerback in all of the NFL. But Now, literally Sandoval's the highest paid quarterback in the NFL. That's how confusing this whole entire season is, basically, with the contracts and everything. The Dolphins added Melvin Ingram this year in free agency to the linebacking core, which includes Channing Tindall, who was their top draft pick, but he was a third round draft pick, so they didn't really add any capital this year. So to me, there's a whole lot of ways that I can kind of foresee this team. Like this team, if their offense is good enough, will be in a lot of shootouts. But just think about that for a second. If you're the Miami Dolphins, do you want to be in a shootout consistently with teams like Cincinnati, who has a high-powered offense, with a team like LA, the Chargers, with Justin Herbert slinging the ball around, with the Bills twice, with the Patriots twice, with the Packers later on in the season? You want to be in a shootout with those teams, or do you want to have some defensive holds against these good teams? I just don't know if I see Josh Boyer's defense as that standout, holding down stalwart yet. Like I can foresee this Dolphins team averaging 25 points or more given up in the regular season on defense in probably all of their games. Maybe not to Houston, maybe not to Cleveland, but 15 of the 17 games I could see them giving up a lot of points. And that might be a problem because if the offense doesn't click, and if Tua Tagovailoa does not do the job that we're expecting him to do under center, then you're talking about a team that, like Justin said, will probably be in the line for a quarterback next season, and there are plenty of them. So this is one of those things where it's a matter of Tua's got to be ready to go. And if I'm the Dolphins, I want him playing as much preseason football as possible, and I want him playing meaningful downs in preseason football. I don't want games ending in ties. I want there to be wins or losses, but I want Tua to try the 2-minute drill maybe once or twice in the preseason with Tyreek Hill and Waddle and Cedric Wilson and this running back core. I want him to be in pressure-packed situations in the preseason and get him to feel how it is, because this ain't no Alabama spring game anymore. You're not playing Savannah State. Now you've got the weapons back. Prove it. Prove yourself, Tua. That's how it's got to be.
Rick, you want the injury-prone guy to play the most time in preseason?
Yes, I do, because I want to show, number one, that he's recovered from that injury enough to be able to work on these situations. And number two, I want to give him the most time in a full contact scenario to figure out how to hit those targets, to figure out how to match the ball speed to Tyreek Hill's foot speed, to figure out how to find Gesicki in the right spot. Hit his favorite target, do it again.
I don't think he needs to play multiple full preseason. I mean, you're putting a guy in there that was a huge injury history. If he gets knocked out, that coach is going to be gone for it. He's going to, you know how much shit they're going to get?
I don't think so. No. See, I don't think so. Because,
what about when Williamson played for the Jets in that preseason game and got knocked out for the whole year?
Look, but this is why you brought in Teron Armstead, right? This is why you brought in the guy who's going to be protecting his blind side on a consistent basis.
These guys aren't all going to play. I don't think Teron Armstead plays any of the preseason.
Right. Well, the point that I'm trying to make though is that the minute that you take Armstead out, you take Tua out. Fine. But
he's not going to play full games. So
I'm not saying play full games. I'm saying it's at least play a half. I want a 2-minute drill out of Tua. I want them to get the ball in the last 2 minutes of a half or 2 minutes of a quarter and have him run a 2-minute drill type scenario. Run hurry up offenses. Run it like it's the last play of the game. Run it like it's you're fighting for your playoff spot, because I'm going to tell you something. Spoiler alert, they're going to be fighting for a playoff spot in the last 2 weeks. And I have a problem with it if Tua's not ready or if Tua's not seasoned enough to do that. I want there to be progression. I want there to be mental progression and educational progression from Tua. And I get it. He's injury prone, but so am I. I could still go out there and run a 2-minute drill if I wanted to. Sandoval could.
But you know what? I'm not taking the chance of him not being in the best physical condition the last 2 weeks of the year because he played 2 full weeks of preseason.
I trust me. The kid knows how to play from his Alabama style, from his Alabama mindset. I believe firmly that this is a year. I believe he's going to make it through the full season. I really do. I think you will only see Teddy Bridgewater in mop-up duty, or if Tua has a 4-interception game. I truly believe that. But again, that's also the thing. I also believe that you've got a guy on the bench who knows what it's like to also come back from a significant injury. Teddy Bridgewater almost lost a leg. You know, like, so if anybody in that quarterback room will know how to show Tua the ropes and how to come back healthier, it's Teddy Bridgewater. It's not Skylar Thompson. It's Teddy Bridgewater.
I also think no need to take the shot at Skylar Thompson there, but I do think that I get your point, Justin, but I think there is some value to just letting Tua
I'm not
and
saying don't
McDaniel
let him play. I'm
and
saying
Tyree.
2 full plus preseason games is a lot.
I mean, playing half of a preseason game, I don't think is the worst thing in the world, even if it is slightly less than like if you get what Rick is saying, if you get within the first quarter, if you can get that 2-minute drill in the first, then and just a couple possessions, like 2 more in the second quarter, I think that'll suffice for a bit because we know that usually like the last preseason game is like the dress rehearsal for the season where teams do play their first stringers for a majority of it, and I think from that mindset. I think that's what the idea is because I could be wrong. Is it 3 preseason games once again this season?
It's 3 this season. Yeah.
So this is very much going to be a case where the first 2 weeks are probably going to be what Rick is talking about, where you only play a half, maybe slightly less than a half, depending. And then that third one is where we're going to see like most of the first strings play. I would assume. So I definitely get the mindset there, and I think even aside from that, it just we really need I think. For Tua this season, because of the offensive instability he's had, I think it's critical that him and that coaching staff really get into sync as quickly as can be. And the only way you can do that at the end of the day, like practice is nice, film sessions are nice, but live game reps, even if it is the preseason, live game reps are going to be what's most valuable for Tua and that team right now. So I think that's going to be the biggest case. I have 2 personal big questions for the Dolphins this upcoming season. Can they coerce Ryan Fitzpatrick coming out of retirement to be the third quarterback on their roster? And also, will Tyreek Hill learn how to say Tua's last name because all he's saying is Tua T whenever he talks about Tua? I think those are my 2 biggest questions about the Dolphins.
Well, technically that's a code because he's saying throw it to a T. I'm Tyreek. Throw it to me. So it works.
I have another bone to pick with you though, Rick. You think the Dolphins defense is going to take that big of a hit this year?
I honestly, they're the only one that inspires confidence in me is Xavier Howard. I don't really think like my biggest thing again, if a defense gets off the field and then because one play later Tyreek Hill's run 85 yards for a touchdown and they're back on the field like a minute and a half later and they're gassed, then yeah, I can see them kind of being gashed up in that next drive. I can see it. But this is a team you want to run the offense at such a high pace at a high power. Agreed. But can your defense catch up with you? And if they can't, like I said, you're going to be in a shootout with Josh Allen and Aaron Rodgers and Justin Herbert on a consistent basis. And that's not something you want to be, especially when Buffalo's defense, which we'll talk about, has improved, and the Chargers' defense is otherworldly. I don't really foresee that being a good thing for Miami. I don't.
All I got to say is Miami was the 6th best team in touchdowns given up last year. They gave up the 6th least amount in 23 touchdowns, and they had 14 interceptions. They got back their 2 starting safeties, their entire linebacker core. They added to the linebacking core. I could see them taking a step back from what you said, and I could see the coaching philosophy also have a big major effect on it because there's no more Brian Flores there. But I can't see them taking that big. Yeah, sure, maybe 1 or 2 games will be shootouts, but I can't see them taking that big of a step back.
So
better defenses in the league.
Justin, my 2 cents on this, and this is where I'm going to lay out and turn the mic off and just leave. Number 1, they lost to Jacksonville last year. Number 2, you said all this great stuff about their defense. Did they make the playoffs last year? No, they didn't.
But this is where we go back to the offense. They didn't
but,
lose.
Right.
They didn't lose.
You said the same exact defense. You said the same exact defense came back. Was this the defense
They also beat the Ravens last year. I mean, you could throw out random games that they should have.
My grandmother could beat the Ravens.
What?
My grandmother could beat the Ravens. Just saying.
I don't know about that, but
they're both no longer here, but they could beat the Ravens. Especially the Irish one. She was 98 when she died. God rest her soul.
God rest her soul.
All I'm saying is they lost a lot of those games last year, but it was more about offensive mishaps than defensive mishaps. Their defense was good. They had good timely interceptions. They kept teams down to low numbers. They couldn't get the ball in the end zone when they needed to. And whether it was Tua being hurt or Jacoby Brissett not being able to do the job or Tua not being able to do the job in tight moments, their defense was not what was to blame, in my opinion.
But that's where I'm saying, I want to see what Tua can do in the preseason and get him ready so that he knows that he has to do the job this year. Otherwise, welcome Spencer Rattler to the Miami Dolphins. You're the number one quarterback.
Wow, what a changing of the guard that would be if Miami goes from Tua to Spencer Rattler. And Spencer Rattler would definitely be happy because he continues being in warm over the states. So
he'd be loving it. Absolutely.
Absolutely. Breaking NBA news, ladies and gentlemen, that temporarily interrupts the podcast. This is the kind of news that we wait for here on the show. Matthew Dellavedova is eyeing an NBA return, ladies and gentlemen. And he's going to work out with the Sacramento Kings in Las Vegas during the Summer League. That's the kind of news break we expect here on the Sports Agents of Chaos podcast.
Also breaking news, Damian Lillard is paying me $10 million out of his $61 million a year contract extension.
That'd be awesome.
Really? Yeah, that'd be great.
I'd
do a leverage buyout for my contract. $10 million. Here you go.
Quite the negotiations right
yes.
there.
Yes.
Moving on from that, I just felt it would be funny to mention Matthew Dellavedova on the show for no reason whatsoever. He could be our Kerry Collins for the NBA world. We just gotta find a way to mention him every single week.
That's true.
Moving on from that. So that was our Dolphins breakdown, ladies and gentlemen. So I mean, Rick, you mentioned this team towards the end of the conversation. So let's just go straight to the team that everyone is going to favor once again to win this division, and that is the Buffalo Bills, aka the most successful team in New York, because they play in Buffalo, New York, and the Jets and Giants technically play in New Jersey. So there you go, ladies and gentlemen. The Buffalo Bills winning this division a couple years in a row now, really solidifying the fact that in the post-Tom Brady era that they have been the team to, quote-unquote, run the AFC East so far. It's only been a couple of years, so I'm not going to say tread the AFC East, we could say. But the Bills are returning an offense that is high-powered. Josh Allen really played a lot better towards the end of last season, especially after that slow start that had a lot of people criticizing him for that big contract extension they gave him. He was playing a lot better. Gabriel Davis is projected, by our show included, to have a big year 2 and to really be the wide receiver 2 on this offense behind Stephon Diggs. The tight end room is good there because they added O.J. Howard. He's an athletic freak of nature, even though he hasn't put it together on the field. Him and Dawson Knox could be a great 1-2 punch. You got an offensive line that did get a little bit better. They did add the veteran Roger Saffold, who was released by the Tennessee Titans during the offseason. And then the defense, they have, you could argue, the best secondary in the NFL. Jordan Poyer, Micah Hyde, Tre'Davious White, insert name of whatever corner you want to put there as your number 2. You got a lot of options there. Kyer Elam maybe could even break out during his rookie season and could find a role in that defense. But really, you got the linebacking core with Edmonds there. I believe it's Tremaine Edmonds. Tremaine Edmonds is the Edmonds brother that plays in Buffalo. And then you have a pass rush that there are a lot of young pieces on that pass rush. I think they would hope for some big years. I think Gregory Rousseau could actually have a very underrated season this year. I think he's in line to have a good year. And part of the reason for that is because one of the big fishes of the offseason, Von Miller, signed with the Buffalo Bills, ladies and gentlemen. It was like a 6-year, $120 million contract. Really, the first 3-4 years is going to be the most valuable of that deal. We'll see what happens in years 5 and 6. But really, the first 3 to 4 years is going to be the telltale sign of the success of this team during that contract. So not a lot of changes, but when Buffalo did strike this offseason, they made good moves. They made big moves. They made smart moves. And that's really what a good contending team does, is that they strike when need be, and they strike very effectively, at least on paper. Rick, I'm going to throw it to you because I think Buffalo, the question for them and the question against them is simple. As per usual, should they be the favorite to once again win the AFC East this season? And we'll get to it later in the show. But can you conceivably see any of these other teams in the division properly challenging them for that first spot?
Not this year. I don't think this year I can see anybody challenging Buffalo. Because correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think they lost anybody. I know they added Saffold and they added Miller, but I don't think there were any key departures from this team from last year's core. So you're talking about a team that is returning everybody that they had from last year, including Tre'Davious White, who may be slighted. He was apparently the 8th best cornerback in the NFL according to the offseason rankings, and he's going to feel incredibly slighted by that ranking. So I feel like this is a team that is just dangerous. They are stacked, loaded. They are the clear favorite in this division. They are one of the best teams in all of football. And it's amazing because, are there guys that need to step up? Yes, you mentioned a bunch of them, but I'm going to name a few others. Spencer Brown on the offensive line has to really keep going. And AJ Epinesa, you talk about the great defensive line that they have with Russo and Ed Oliver. They added Von Miller in the linebacking core. They've got Carlos Basham, and Shaq Lawson too. But AJ Epinesa was a second-round pick. Could have been a top 3 pick, but fell so far to the second round. Buffalo has seen no production from him. So now this is a case where he's got to really improve himself. And I think this is a team that has all the weapons necessary. I mean, we talked about Gabriel Davis a few weeks ago about how this is going to be a big year for him. We've talked about, their tight end core, Dawson Knox, OJ Howard. We've talked at length about this defense here. You didn't mention the punt god, though. You didn't mention Matt Ariaza, and I'm a little concerned about that, Jerk. I'm worried that you're forgetting punters here.
I was going to let you sing his praises.
Well, I will sing his praises because this man is a phenomenal punter, and also ran the 40-yard dash in 4.68 seconds, which is great for a punter, I will say. Now, my thing is, with Buffalo, there's all of this hype and there's all this belief. And week 1, you're in LA against the defending Super Bowl champions. So this is the team that all this hype and all this power and all this, pep in your step. Well, if you come out and lay an egg in week 1 against the Rams, all that hype goes away. I mean, sure, they'll still be a really good team in the AFC, but that just says that the AFC's best team is on a level 2 tiers below the NFC's best team and the NFL's best team in the Rams, basically. So I think, like I said, all this hype, it's well-deserved. They're an excellent team. Sean McDermott is probably one of the top 5 coaches in the NFL. The staff is incredible. Ken Dorsey is an excellent offensive coordinator. But at the end of the day, you got to prove it. All the stuff on paper is great, but you got to prove it if you want to be that team to take that next step forward and curse the demons of Scott Norwood and Jim Kelly.
Curse the demons of Scott Norwood and Jim Kelly. Also, I mean, just real quick before Justin goes here, Tyler Bass is the place kicker as well. One of the best kickers in the game.
That's right.
Can't forget that.
That's right.
And Reed Ferguson, one of the better long snappers in the game as well. So Bills
great number, Reed Ferguson, excellent number.
So arguably the most complete special teams unit in the league in regards to those 3 right there. Justin, with that information in mind, clearly special teams is going to make the difference here. Do you echo Rick's sentiment? This is just Buffalo's division to lose here.
Absolutely. Listen, they were easily the best team in the AFC East last year. They should be again this year. I think they've only really improved. I'd say maybe if there's one position group that got maybe worse was the wide receivers, but I don't really think that's the case. I think Gabriel Davis will step into that too nicely. I think Jamison Crowder was an excellent addition there. Their real weakness last year was run defense. They were the number 1 pass defense in the league by a lot. They gave up the least amount of touchdowns, and they couldn't get after the quarterback, and they couldn't stop the run. So adding Von Miller is an excellent play for them. I know that they addressed more in the draft as well with their defensive line. My only thing is, I would say if Buffalo is going to struggle, it's going to be early when they have that rough stretch of games. They play the Rams, the Titans, the Dolphins, the Ravens, the Packers, the Chiefs. So I would say don't be surprised if the Bills start out like 4-3, maybe are second in the division, and then go on a hot streak to really just wrap things up and enter the playoffs hotter than they've ever entered before.
Fair. And I will say this, I think of all the teams when we talked about rough stretches so far, I think Buffalo is the team most conceivable. It's like, yeah, they could go 4-3 maybe in those first 7, but they could also go 6-1. They could really show that they are the cream of the. I know you're not saying that they are going to go 4-3. It's just like because of how rough it is, it's more likely they lose a game to start the season compared to the back end of the season.
Absolutely, well, their back end of their season is nothing compared to the front end. I mean, they end with like the Jets twice and a Dolphins game. And hold on one second, let's see, I have it here.
They go to Chicago on Christmas Eve.
Yeah, the last
Merry Christmas
10 games.
Right there.
It's the Jets November 6th, the Vikings, the Browns, the Lions, the Patriots, the Jets, the Dolphins, the Bears, the Bengals is really the only test in there, and then the Patriots again. They should conceivably win 9 out of those 10 games.
Oh, yeah.
Shouldn't really be close. I mean, maybe the Patriots or the Dolphins give them a little bit of a run for their money. It's possible that one of these bad teams has a great game against Mac Jones or something like that. But, yeah, and the Lions, of course, so forgive me. But, listen, they should conceivably win 9 out of those 10 games.
Well, look, here's the thing, too, that I also want to mention up. This is the team that also shored up there. We talk about special teams. They added Tavon Austin, who is going to be a gunner for them in punt returns and kick returns, absolutely. And one of the most well-documented highlights that I think we've ever seen is when Tavon Austin and Stephen Bailey faked out the Seahawks when they were part of the Rams in that punt return. This is a guy who knows how to flat-out fly And don't be surprised if he also has a little bit of a renaissance, because last year he was on Jacksonville, didn't really perform very well. But all you got to do is look back at his years with the Rams, where he was catching 58 balls, 52 balls, like 81 yards for a longest one, 4 or 5 touchdowns. Tavon Austin's going to be a guy who's going to surprise you and maybe run a couple of special gadget plays here and there, I think.
I can only imagine if Sean McVay would have gotten his hands on Tavon Austin.
Oh, my God.
Like,
oh, my God.
If Tavon Austin was just like born 5-6 years later and he went to the Rams.
Yeah.
Sean McVay, oh, my God. He would have turned him into something. So just saying that. I'm with you guys. I think the Bills, I think it's cut and dry. I think they are the favorites. I think the only position group I can see maybe struggling a little bit, and I think the struggles were a bit overblown last season for this group, but the running backs, like just the support for Josh Allen, I think is going to be critical in terms of the rushing game. Devin Singletary, I think a lot of people are pointing to for him to finally and hopefully have a big breakout season. Zach Moss as well. They did get James Cook in this draft out of Georgia. So maybe he can be, that spark plug to the rushing game that they've been waiting for these last couple seasons. Who knows? Maybe, you talk about him being on special teams work. Maybe they get a little bit creative and Tavon Austin can have a Cordell Patterson type role and couple hands off, couple jet sweeps here and there. Right. You could definitely see that. And if there's a coaching staff that I think could definitely pull that off, I think this one for sure, because Sean McDermott's done a phenomenal job, to say the least.
And you're right about James Cook. Don't sleep on him, because this is a guy who in his last year in Georgia ran for 728 yards, 7 touchdowns. They also caught 27 balls for 4 scores and 284 yards. Georgia won the national title, and I can argue like their defense was incredible, but James Cook was a pretty significant part of that offense for them, and I think that's worth mentioning too. He wasn't the starter because they had Zamir White, but at the same time, he was still a big key in that offense, and he could slot into a role really nicely very early on in this offense.
Yeah, a lot of draft picks from that Georgia National Championship team that went into this draft. James Cook being one of them, ladies and gentlemen. But Buffalo, of course, favorites to win this division. We're really just talking about who's fighting for second place at this point. So, guys, before we talk about potential dreams for the season, we gotta go through some nightmares. New England Patriots for this season, little bit of a rebirth. They scared everybody towards the end of the season that they could have won the division again, and that when everyone was saying "Ding dong, the witch is dead," it's like, oh god, they've been reviving. They had Horcruxes in this division, and they came back like Voldemort himself, ready to torture us all again. But was not the case. The Buffalo Bills destroyed them with every sword and weapon possible, to say the very least, especially in that playoff game. But the New England Patriots, double-digit wins last season. I don't think a lot of people expected that prior going into 2021. Interesting, to say the least, what the outlook could be of this team for this upcoming season. You have year 2 of McCorkle Jones and what he could do with that offense, with the exhilarating eventual backup quarterback of this team in Bailey Zappi. You have a running game, which is always strong here, but you have Damian Harris leading the way. They drafted Pierre Strong in this past draft, which I know gave Rick nightmares because Pierre Strong was a guy that Rick had pointed out in our luck. The size says it all, ladies and gentlemen. The wide receiving core will be interesting because, and also actually got to mention him, James White, veteran running back there. You have Kendrick Bourne with this team offensively, Jacoby Myers, who's really broken out for himself the last couple of years, all-time special team and future Hall of Famer in Matthew Slater being the guy there. And then you also have Devontae Parker, who they traded for in the offseason, and Tyquan Thornton, who they drafted. So there's a lot there. Patriots are always good on the offensive line for the most part. They did let go of Shaq Mason, but I think Bill Belichick is going to handle them fine, including first-round pick Cole Strange. Still a weird sentence to say. We actually have a bet regarding Cole Strange in the works here on the podcast, ladies and gentlemen, so don't worry about that. Cole Strange will be a prominent figure on the show soon enough. Really, the defense on this team is interesting. It's a mishmash of guys who are fine, but like no big names. Like this defensive line, you have good enough players like Dietrich Weiss Jr. and Lawrence Guy, but again, like nothing eye-opening there, to say the least. Maybe this young guy DeMarcus Mitchell could make an impact for the team. We'll see there. The linebacking core, you have a couple decent pieces. Bentley, Matthew Jennings, who also provides pass rush. They got Raekwon McMillan, former Alabama guy. Like, again, decent, not great. And then the cornerback / defensive back room, you got some veterans there in Jalen Mills. They actually brought back Malcolm Butler. So there's your flashback to the Super Bowl. He's showing up on the roster, so he's there. And of course, you have Jabril Peppers is on this team as well with Devin McCourty. Kyle Duggar, a former second-round pick, I want to say, for this team. So a lot a lot of mishmash, like mix and match parts here for the New England Patriots guys, which was really a lot of what they did towards the end of Tom Brady's time. But as we know, Tom Brady's not the quarterback anymore. So what is Bill Belichick doing? Who knows? You know, he's letting his dog make all the draft decisions. So maybe that's the case. If he had someone like Sandoval in his draft room, maybe they would be a lot better the last couple of years. But doesn't look to be the case this time around. But we'll throw it to you first, Justin. The New England Patriots. You know, this is a little bit of therapy here. Talk about what it's going to be for what's 2022 is going to be for them. Are they going to take a step back from last season? Because I don't think. Again, I just read out this roster on paper, man. I don't know or think that they should have 10 wins again this year.
Listen, I need to say this. People, as soon as Tom Brady left, said we're going to find out immediately who was the best, who was the reason. Is it Bill Belichick or is it Tom Brady? And Tom Brady went and he won a Super Bowl immediately and everyone said Bill Belichick's washed. He's got nothing. Now let me say this: they're two very different jobs. Tom Brady went to the most complete team in football that didn't have a quarterback in a bad division. They did have Drew Brees against Saints, blah, 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 and won a Super Bowl. Bill Belichick had a team devoid of parts, lost the Hall of Fame quarterback that was at his thing, and in 2 years had this team in position to win 10 games. Now, I do think they take a step back this year, but it's not because Bill Belichick is washed, all right? As much as I hate this man with every fiber in my being, Bill Belichick is easily a Hall of Fame coach, and it takes time to put together the players that you need for this roster to thrive and be a perennial playoff team again. Now, I do think they have a really tough schedule this year. They're going to play a lot of teams that I think are going to take a step forward this year, and I don't see the Patriots winning 10 games. I don't. They have too many games that I'm like, could go either way, but I'm probably going to go with the team that has the more prolific offense. I know the Patriots should have a top 10 defense again this year. They should be nasty. I do think Mac Jones will have a decent season. At the very least, I think he matches or is just around his numbers from last year, but I don't think it's enough. And again, it's not for lack of trying, and I don't think it's not that the games won't be close, but they do play an improved Dolphins team twice this year. They play a Bills team that's not letting up twice this year. They play the Raiders. They play the Bengals. They play the Cardinals. I think the Vikings are improved. The Colts are improved. They play the Packers. There's so many teams this year that are going to give them a run for their money, and they're not going to pull any punches just because there's a second-year quarterback there now. Mac Jones is not fooling anyone. So obviously it'll depend on how healthy they stay also, but a good defense and a solid offense is not going to get them 10 wins in a playoff spot this year. It's just not in the cards, in my opinion. Maybe next year when they have, some decent draft picks, maybe Bill Belichick can break his streak of not drafting a Pro Bowler in the last, 10 years. But I don't see it this year. I think that the Patriots are going to end up probably in third, if not fourth in this division.
Ooh, wow. That'd be something to behold if we see the New England Patriots in fourth place in the AFC East, to say the very least. That could be it right there. Rick, take your turn. New England Patriots, what's that smile? What's 2022 going to be like for them? Are we going to see Bailey Zappi this season, Rick?
First of all, believe it. You're going to see it. The Patriots are going to finish in last place in this division. That is my guess. Secondly, to go on Bailey Zappi for a second, do you guys know what jersey number he's wearing? 55. Because remember, now that the NFL has these rules about, the jerseys, they can wear whatever number they want, he's wearing number 55 as a quarterback. When did he become like a hockey defenseman that he can wear 55? When is he Brian Berard? No, he's a quarterback. Look.
Bring in the long sleeve NFL jerseys.
Yeah, right. Jeez. Look, the biggest thing about this team that I think has problem is that you've replaced J.C. Jackson with an aged Malcolm Butler. Malcolm Butler's 32 years old, and now he's going to be. He comes off of arguably maybe one of the worst seasons of his career, I think. He didn't play last year. Tennessee, he was great for Tennessee in 2020, but he's 32, and now you're telling him to lead this defense that has not improved, that it's kind of stayed the course. they're going to be a good defense, but they're not going to be the defense that everybody thinks they're going to be. Can I see Bailey Zappi? Sure. You know why I can see Bailey Zappi? Because of Cole Strange. I think there's going to be a missed assignment, a missed sign by Cole Strange, and Mac Jones is going to get flattened. And we're going to see Bailey Zappi in mop of duty. Look, Mac Jones was a game manager last year. There's no question in my mind. He only threw 22 touchdown passes last year. But if you're looking about a quarterback in a high prolific offense, 22 touchdowns is not going to get the job done. I'm sorry.
The way some people talked about him, Rick, you would have thought he threw for 35 in his rookie season.
I mean, he also threw 13 interceptions. So 22 and 13 is 35. So if we want to play the Scott Steiner math game here, sure, fine, why not? But your wide receiver core has not improved. In fact, I believe they've gotten worse, I think. Your tight end core I stand by my statement. Jonnu Smith and Hunter Henry are fine tight ends, like no question there. But what are you going to do? Keep throwing the ball to James White out of the flat, constantly? Like that's not going to get picked up every 5 or 6 plays. Here's my big thing: Damian Harris is in a contract year, so the offense has to go through him, because he's the guy that's really got the most to prove, because this is the time for him to show why he deserves a big contract. He's not a guy that I would expect to get a big contract, but maybe because of this now, he's a big contract guy, I think. I don't see this Patriots team doing a whole heck of a lot. I really don't. And I think that their break coming out of the bye is really, really tough, because yes, they have the Jets at home, but then they have Justin's NFC North champion Minnesota. They play Buffalo twice after the bye, which is December and January against Buffalo, when they're ready to go to the postseason. You have an Arizona team that could be fighting for a playoff berth, a Raiders team that could be fighting for a playoff berth, and that's a short week too. Then you get the Bengals at home on Christmas Eve and the Dolphins at home on New Year's Day. To me, that second half of the schedule is brutal. As Justin was saying, it's a brutal, brutal schedule. So I feel like in that aspect too, I can't see this Patriots team winning more than 7 games this year. I do not see them winning 8 games, 9 games. I see them winning 7. I do. And I think it's going to put them in a spot where they're going to have a high enough draft pick that you think maybe they'll take a quarterback, potentially. But I feel like they trust Mac Jones enough that they just want to get him more weapons, which is fine, because that'll just continue to signal the downturn of the most hated franchise in all of Long Island. And, that's great. So I'm fine with it. Why not?
Hey, that's. I mean, the points you bring up there, you could get 2 really from late November to January. You could get 3 snowy games, because you got Minnesota in late November. Could be some snow there. You got that game at the start of December in Foxborough. Could be some snow between them and the Bills. Ending the season in Buffalo. Could be some snow there. And those Cardinals and Raiders games, short week, and on the road for both of them.
Yeah.
So elements will not play in your favor.
Not a chance.
It's looking like a rough year for the Patriots on paper here, boys. I can't disagree. Like, even the thing is, there's not really a soft spot in their schedule for the most part, because first 5-6 weeks of the season, start with the Dolphins, then you take on the Steelers. Okay, here there. Take on the Ravens. So you got former MVP. Take on the Packers. Take on the Lions. Take on the Browns. Like, maybe some softies in there, but it's nothing guaranteed.
The Browns, the Browns will definitely be a softie.
Right. And then you got the Bears and the Jets. Okay. Then you got the Colts, Jets, and then Vikings. Like you guys said, Vikings, Bills, Cardinals, Raiders, Bengals, Dolphins, Bills. It is not looking good. And honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if the Patriots drop one of those soft games that, they in the years past they would have won, because this is just not that same team anymore. You said it. I think the Malcolm Butler thing really is the perfect holy representation of it, Rick, where this is no longer a team with Tom Brady at quarterback, but it kind of feels like Belichick is still running things like Tom Brady's at the quarterback spot. So it's rough to say the very least. So moving on from it, and potentially some therapy right there for the two gentlemen, ladies and gentlemen. The last team we're going to talk about here in our AFC East divisional breakdown before we get to the final standings. New York Jets. Now, this might take a little bit, ladies and gentlemen. I'm not going to waste any time. I'm not going to give a summary of the Jets. I don't think I could do any better than my two compatriots here, so I'm just going to let them start off. Rick, I'm going to throw it to you first. Jets 2022. What are we expecting?
Look, maybe it's just me, and maybe I'm a little bit higher up on this team than I think a lot of people are, but I think the Jets in this offseason made significant steps and significant improvements to make themselves a much better team. I mean, I think, with the guys that they added on offense, first talk about offense. Garrett Wilson has shown that he's been a big star in training camp so far, and I think that's a huge improvement for them, that they need somebody excellent like that on their wide receiving core. The fact that they added Ty Conklin and CJ Uzama, especially CJ Uzama, to that tight end room is a huge improvement over what they had, because you never knew if Jeff Cumberland was going to come back for his 85th season playing for the Jets at the tight end. You never knew if that was going to be the case or not. So having those two guys back is excellent. I think their offensive line, if Mekhi Becton can be the nasty beast that he is, I think he can really show Max Mitchell, who they picked up in the draft, who was an excellent choice in the draft. And I think we all agreed that he was an excellent pick by them. An excellent, really, really tough offensive line. On defense, this team got better too, because you had Sauce Gardner and Jermaine Johnson, probably the most underrated pick and the most to-prove pick, Jermaine Johnson on the defensive end, the defensive line. Not to mention the fact that, they get CJ Mosley back in the linebacker core. They added Jordan Whitehead. They added DJ Reed. They added all these excellent players. And Greg Zuerlein's going to cause some competition in camp with Eddie Pinheiro. And finally, the Jets actually have a decent kicking room, whereas last year was like a revolving door. It was hitting me on the butt every single time that a kicker missed the kick and he would get cut the next week. Eddie Pinheiro did a great job, but now you got Zuerlein in there. I'm loving it. Look, again, maybe I'm a little bit more high up on this team than a lot of other people are, but I feel like this is a case where Zach Wilson and Robert Saleh are going to take a significant step forward, and we're going to have some meaningful Jets games come November and December. The fact of the matter is, too, that after the game against the Lions on December 18th, they've got the Jaguars and the Seahawks. It's not, are those meaningful games to somebody? Sure, but at the same time, those are games that should be wins late in the season, because Jacksonville, although I said they could improve, that they're going to have some growing pains. And we all know what Seattle is. So therefore, to me, it's a really exciting offseason. It's a really exciting time to be a Jets fan. Damn Pro Football Focus, because they ranked the Jets at 24th overall in their roster. I don't give a, what you say. Sandoval and I do not approve of that. Let's go Jets. I think it's going to be a good season for them. Probably not a playoff year, but the steps are there to make significant progress moving forward.
And we've kind of talked about it. That's what you hope for this team in this season. And you say yourself, they made a lot of additions to this team. So even aside from the draft with their first two picks with Wilson and Gardner, but they made, I think, what was smart veteran additions to shore up the team. You think of Laken Tomlinson along the offensive line. I think of DJ Reed in that cornerback crew. I think he can make an impact. You got some veterans there along the defensive line that maybe they could come in and at least be, good pros for their young guys. And of course, Jermaine Johnson, he could be a wild card. He could have a underrated rookie season, really, for the Jets. So it's a lot of different factors here. Is it a concern for either of you two that Zach Wilson has really fallen into the New York celebrity life and he's now dating a TikTok star?
I mean, look, yes, but to my knowledge, at least he won't get mono like Sam Darnold did.
Yeah, I mean, hey, you'll take it if that's the case. There.
And also a fleeting comment. What does TikTok star even mean? Can I put that on my resume that I'm a TikTok star? Like that? That's not like that's one of the worst jobs I think I've ever seen, along with influencer. What does that even mean? What are you influencing me on? Come on.
Who knows? I mean, Rick, your rants are slowly becoming. I think we could argue your rants are getting into the influencer territory.
I'm influencing the over 60 community to keep getting off my lawn. So there's that, But
so Justin, we got Rick's thoughts. What are your thoughts on the Jets going into the 2022 campaign here?
Listen, I expect improvement. Rick is right. They've really, on paper, they've improved. They've added a lot of talent. Rick, you forgot to mention last year's big free agency pickup that they didn't get to play in Carl Lawson. For the first time in God knows how long, it looks like the Jets might actually have two serviceable defensive ends if this kid Jermaine Johnson could do anything. So listen, I expect them to make the playoffs this year? No, but they could take a serious step forward if they go, if they get more than 7, 8 wins. It's a step forward. It's not what I'm really looking for, but I'll take an improvement. When was the last time the Jets had 8 wins? It's been at least 3, 4 years. I'll take it.
For muting me, by the way. Wasn't it Todd Bowles' first year and when he got 10 wins or something like that? And they
Yeah.
could have week 17 against Buffalo, which was a disaster.
They said if they would have won both Buffalo games, they would have been the number 1 seed that year in the playoffs.
I remember that day eating rich chips and drinking sparkling grape juice and thinking to myself, I'm fancy. Why are the Jets not being able to live with my fanciness?
They lost to Matt Barkley, right? Matt Barkley was starting the game for the Bills.
He's still playing, by the way.
Oh,
Matt Barkley's still playing. But regardless, I agree. I mean, I know I didn't mention some things like Carl Lawson's a big one. John Franklin Myers, who was the star of that defensive line last year, who came out of really nowhere.
Even in addition, like Solomon Thomas, like they said he struggled in San Francisco, but they also moved him to linebacker. Like he's going to be playing the position he was drafted in, which he played very well his rookie season. So listen, that defensive line could actually be like a force, assuming that everyone stays healthy and stays on the field this year. The Jets really did make a lot of strong moves to really improve their roster. Now, like I said, they're not going to benefit from their schedule this year. I don't see them winning a ton of games, especially early on. They have a really tough stretch. If they win 4 out of their first 10 games, I'll be happy because, the back half of their season is really where things start to get a little weaker when they play, the Bears, the Vikings, the Jags, the Lions, the Seahawks. But yeah, we're looking for improvement, and it's been a long time since there's been a step forward for a New York football team, both teams. So if the Jets take a step forward this year, what's there to be upset about? I'd love a playoff game. I don't see it happening. I just want to step forward. Give me the bare minimum. Give me 7-10, 8-9. I'll take it.
Give you progress. That's what you want.
Progress. Finally show me that the moves that this Joe Douglas that we've all been praising, that the moves that he's making are making sense and they're working. That's all I want to see.
Fair. And you get for a long time the Jets have been a punchline. And they've been a very popular punchline throughout the meme community for a good while now. I think this could finally be the season that maybe there's a real change in the guard. Not that 10-win season that they had and then they became a meme again. Not the time before that. And, back-to-back AFC Championship games and then Mark Sanchez becomes the butt fumble. I think the Jets have a real chance of finally overcoming meme status for this season. And I think they could really turn things around. That'd be big for the organization. And we've talked about all the pieces at the end of the day that could help. Rick said it himself. The core of this team moving forward is the special teams. That you have the potential at kicker, and also Brendan Macho Man there at punter. You got one of the best young punters in the game. I think if you're the Jets, in all seriousness, I think for the Jets, doing several podcasts with several Jets fans, this puts me in an interesting position. But I really do think that the Jets are in line for a good season this year. And I think for this team, what I've said, this has kind of been my mindset with this team the whole time. Like, if you just get the performances you want to see from Zach Wilson, from Garrett Wilson, from, I wish I could think of another Wilson on this team.
Wilson Phillips.
Exactly. If you get Sauce Gardner showing he has the ability to be that number 1 shutdown caliber corner. Not every single week, that's going to be tough, but the most he can. If Mekhi Becton and Elijah Vera Tucker can stay healthy and really be the cornerstones of that offensive line, I think if Michael Carter can both, be pluses for the running game in the secondary, I think there's a lot on this Jets team you could like. And as long as these young guys can really show something, I think, like I've always said this about a losing team, when your team sucks, and my hockey team is going to be this for a while, so I'm going to very much hold this true, is that when your team sucks, you look for performances from individuals. Who should I be excited about? Who is going to give me hope that in a couple years here, we're going to be in a better situation? That's the most important thing that you could want and look forward to ultimately. I think for the Jets, we are in that time still to an extent, but it's not. I don't think it's different because I don't think it's like we're only going to get 4 wins. Show me something. It's, we should win a couple games here. and keep showing me something. Show me this progression. Show me Zach Wilson reading defenses better. Show me Garrett Wilson, from day one being a great rookie. Show me Mekhi Becton being healthy for the whole year. Show me Jermaine Johnson having some great pass rush potential. Show me. And that's what the Jets are about this season, is that these young guys are showing off and showing out for the beautiful people of New Jersey.
Rick, I got a question for you. What does it say that two diehard Jet fans broke down their expectations for the Jets, and neither one of them mentioned Zach Wilson?
I think what it means is that there's a lot of other pathways. I think we're expecting Zach Wilson to take that step forward, but I think what it means is that they added so many other pieces around him that it's almost a foregone conclusion that we expect him to be better this year. I feel like.
What do you expect out of Zach Wilson? You too, Jared. What do you expect out of Zach Wilson this year?
Oh, I want to see a 4,000-yard season out of this kid. I really do. I want to see a 4,000-yard season out of this kid. And you know what I also want to see? Joe Flacco go away. I want to see Joe Flacco go away. I do not want to see Joe Flacco get on the field at all unless it's to take the final kneel down in a meaningless game in preseason. That's fine.
Would you take 3,000 yards, 25 touchdowns, 13 interceptions?
Define 3,000 yards. Are we talking low 3,000? Or are we talking high 3,000?
34, 35.
I want 38. I want 38. I want to see Corey Davis, and I want to see Garrett Wilson, and I want to see this wide receiver core and this tight end core really have high receiving yard numbers. I do. I want to see 1,000-yard receiver in New York.
If Zach Wilson does what I just said, 35, 3,500 yards, 25 touchdowns, 13 interceptions. How many?
He can take whatever TikTok star he wants. Then that's totally fine by me.
How many games do they win?
Well, I'll tell you where I have them. I have them going 8-9 this year.
I have to.
I have them going 8-9 this year, and not to. I'm not going to spoil it because I do have a saucy little pick. Hint, hint, wink, wink about Sauce Gardner. But I feel like this is a team that's ready for that step. I think this is going to be one of the most improved teams in the NFL record-wise, and I think a lot of that's going to have to do with the progression and maturity of Zach Wilson and the fact that they got more weapons around him, and that the defense just got a lot better too. I think this is a team that I can see going 8-9. And that's not a playoff. It's not going to be we're in the playoff hunt in the final 2 weeks. No, I think there's other teams and other factors outside of the division that are going to probably have them being not in it. But I think 8-9 is still going to be something that's something to cheer about in New York. And New York football needs something to cheer about because, the New York Guardians sucked in the XFL. And then the New Jersey Generals of Birmingham, Alabama couldn't win the USFL championship. So we need something. So give me the Jets. Give me a good season for the Jets.
There we go. I'm kind of with you guys, Justin. I think the baseline stats you just read out, those are my expectations for Zach Wilson personally. I think a big up in yardage. I think he's definitely got to be around the 3,500-yard mark, if not more. I think at least 24 touchdowns, a little bit more now that's the 17-game season. So if he could get 27, 28 touchdowns, that'd be really nice. And like you said, 13 interceptions. He had 11 last season. So if there's only a small increase there, I can live with that. I think the expectation, the hope is 3,500 yards minimum, and I think twice as many touchdowns as interceptions would be the hope. So if he throws 13 interceptions, I want 26 touchdowns or more. If he throws 14 interceptions, please give me 28, 29, even 27. I'll accept 27 if he throws 14 interceptions. You want Zach Wilson to show the best possible version of himself that he can be. And also, we haven't talked about rushing yards, but if he could, keep making things happen with his legs too, I wouldn't be against it.
Yeah, I mean, he ran for 185 yards last year and 4 scores. I want to see over 30 touchdowns because I don't want to have a New England fan come back at me and be like, oh, well, you said Mac Jones threw 22 last year and Zach Wilson only threw 26. Shut up, Patriots fans. Enough. So I want to see over 30 from Zach Wilson, please.
Yeah, more than reasonable, to say the very least. So that just about wraps up the AFC East talk, breakdown of each team. So that leaves only one thing, Rick. Well, technically 2 things on the show, but this one thing will go fast. Our standings for the AFC East and how we see it breaking down. I will go first. I normally leave it to you guys, but I'll actually take it first this week just to make it quick and easy. I have the Buffalo Bills at number 1. If I had to give a record, I'd say 13-4. I think we talked about this, the best team in the division. I think that even though it's a tough start to the schedule, I think they're going to be really great to show out. And I think this team is, because the Chiefs lost some pieces because the AFC West might cannibalize itself. I think to a lot of people, this is the early Super Bowl favorite to come out of the AFC for a lot of people. I think the AFC champion could be Buffalo, and it could go through Buffalo, depending on how the regular season shapes out. So I got them at 13-4. Second place, I got the Miami Dolphins. To be determined if I think they're a wild card team. That's going to be an interesting conversation when we have it in a couple weeks' time about the AFC wild card. But I think the Dolphins should be the second team in this division. I'm with you guys. I have the Jets at number 3. I think that they have made significant strides this offseason. I think the Patriots have declined enough. I think the Jets are going to be the third best team in the division. I'm with you guys. I think 8-9 is fair. If they could get 9-8, I think that'd be amazing for this team. Or 8-1, because technically you're still above 500 percentage-wise, boys. And then the New England Patriots are my last team in this division. I think Mac Jones is going to get exposed this season. I think he's going to get exposed. I think a lot of people are going to, everything is going to come out behind the veil, and we're going to see that Mac Jones is a good quarterback. He's not great. And I think even some people may not say he's good anymore after this next season. Who knows? So those are my predictions for the AFC East. Rick, you may go. This is joint predictions between you and Sandoval, by the way, since he doesn't like making predictions.
Correct. That's a fact. Patriots 7-10. I think I almost put them at 6-11, but I think 7-10 is probably a fairer assessment for this team. Like I said, I don't really see them doing anything special, and that back half of the schedule is a brutal killer for them. Jets at 8-9. Sauce Gardner, Defensive Rookie of the Year, is my prediction as well. And I have them going 8-9, winning the last game, playing spoiler and knocking Miami out of the playoffs. Miami will go 9-8, and they will miss the playoffs by one game yet again. And they will fire Mike McDaniel. No, I'm kidding about the last one because I can't. But Buffalo 13-4. I actually have them, when I did my full thing, I have them being the number 1 seed in the AFC. I have it all going through Buffalo. And as I told you last week, Jurg, I have Buffalo in the AFC title game. That's all I'm going to say about it because I want to leave a little bit of drama there. But I have them in the AFC title game. But I agree. But this is Buffalo's division to lose. I think Miami's not there yet, but I think they will get there. And I think the Jets will play spoiler in Week 17 and knock them out and just add a little bit of nice little spice to what should be a fun AFC East season.
Nice. Justin, your AFC standings?
I guess I will start with the obvious, and obviously I think I'm going to take the Bills. I'm going to put them at 12-5 this year. I think there's always 1 or 2 games that they for some reason don't show up for. So I'm not really convinced for that 13 number. It's pretty rare, in my opinion, for these teams to make it that far anyways. So I'm going to have the Bills at 12-5. Excuse me. In second place, I'm going to put the Dolphins as well. The Dolphins I'm struggling with because I could see them being 9-8, and I could see them being 11-6, which is a big swing in my opinion. So I guess I'll stick them right in the middle. I'll put them at 10-7 for now. The Jets I have 8-9. This might just be the bias of me, being that optimistic Jets fan, but I think they could steal some games against some good teams. I think people are going to be surprised by the way that defense plays. I think there's going to take a major step forward defensively, and I think Zach Wilson can really take a step forward this year. His red zone efficiency was excellent last year. He's got to work a little bit better in the middle of the field and some of those easier reads, but those are fixable things. And I really expect him to take a step forward this year. And this is where a lot of people are going to be surprised. I have New England at 5-11 this year. I really do think that they're going to have a tough time against these stronger offensive teams. They struggled last year against teams that could put up points. They had a weaker schedule last year, and the NFL scheduling committee did not do them any favors, especially in that back half of the season. I mean, I could see them starting off hot, maybe have that Cam Newton type of year where they're like 6-3, or I'm sorry, like 5-3, and then just go on a huge losing streak in the second half of the season. So look for them to be 5-11. Maybe 5-12, maybe 6-11, but they're going to have a bad team. They could even be a top 10 draft pick this coming year.
Wow. What a prediction right there.
Whew. I thought I was going to have a hot take, but man,
Rick. The schedule is so hard, dude.
No, yeah,
it is. I'm not disagreeing with you there, but I'm trying to think when the last time was the Patriots had a top 10 pick.
I mean, they could even lose that Steelers game, dude. I mean, the Steelers are not a great offense, but their defense is still, in my opinion, the cream of the crop. How are they going to score against that team?
Yeah. And also,
not going to throw an interception or two. Pick six. That's the game. That's how they beat the Bills that year. They are an excellent defense, and they still got Mike Tomlin there.
Yeah, and they're not going to start Kenny Pickett, so Bill Belichick can't eat up on a rookie quarterback like he tends to do throughout his career. So
That's what I'm saying. There are some of these games. The Ravens game, are they going to be able to stop Lamar Jackson and a healthy J.K. Dobbins? They also have an improved secondary and a great run-stopping team. They're gonna rely on Mac Jones to beat them. Is Mac Jones going to beat a team like the Ravens?
probably not.
So that's 2 of their first 3 games. Then they play the Packers.
So the last time I'm looking at this, the last time that the Patriots had a top 10 pick, that qualifier, that was their own top 10 pick, because in 2008 they took the 10th pick from the Saints, drafted Gerard Mayo. The last time they had a top 10 pick that was their own was 2001. It was the number 6 overall pick. And any guesses as to who they took that year?
Sean Ellis?
That's
No,
the
not
guess
Sean
pick,
Ellis.
dude.
I can't remember his name.
I mean, you're in the right part of the football field.
Yeah,
Richard Seymour?
Richard Seymour was number 6 overall in 2001. Yeah,
Sean Ellis went in 2001 also, right?
he did. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know how I flipped those over.
It happens.
But, yeah. So you be talking about, for the first time in 20 plus years, the Patriots in the top 10 of the NFL draft. That's something.
I know I screwed up my prediction by saying they're going to lose 3 of their first 4, but that stretch that I was talking about where they start winning games is going to be in the middle, like the Dolphins. I believe I said we're going to also have that. But yeah, look, they're going to start off rough. I think they're going to end rough. There's a little stretch in the middle where they play the Lions, the Browns, the Bears, and the Jets, and then they come back and they play the Colts. I think the Vikings are improved. They play the Bills.
Yep.
Justin. It's more than fair. And you saying that, Justin, I think a lot of Patriots fans are going to be obviously upset. I think a lot of Patriots fans are going to want to rant against you.
I got news for you. I know a lot of Patriots fans. They're on board with this. They're not happy with the direction that their franchise is going. I disagree with them. I think they're moving in the right direction, and they're going to be a benefit actually of having a tough schedule and get a nice draft pick and really be better than next year. But they're going to have a rough year. Things get worse before they get better, at least in my history in my experience with the Jets.
Well, I was going to say, as Jets fans, you guys have experience with that. But what I was saying, Justin, is like maybe you're close friends, but I think anyone that listens to us in Boston, Massachusetts, it's not going to be very happy with you. But I mean, if they want to learn how to rant, ladies and gentlemen, there's only one place and one man to go to learn that. Rantin' Rick's Roastum Podium, ladies and gentlemen.
Howdy, y'all. Oh,
Rick,
my goodness.
Rick, this is all yours at this point. Close this out like you always do, King.
All right. Yep, we decided after last week, because we did the podium with the top 3, how we're going to get this rant done. So, number 3 of my rants for this week, Novak Djokovic and Rafael Nadal. Let somebody else win a tennis tournament, for crying out loud. Like, you guys have just won like 45 of the last 50 majors. Enough. And Nadal gets to the semifinals, and it's like, oh, my abdomen hurts. I got to retire. So, meh. Go away, you two. Let somebody else win. Look at the women's tournament in Wimbledon. We had first-time finalists from Kazakhstan and Tunisia, and the Kazakhstani Rybakina, she won. That's great for the growth of tennis. The two of you just constantly winning does not help grow men's tennis at all. It makes it incredibly annoying that every single tournament, it's the final, Djokovic, Nadal, skip, next, moving on, something else. So let somebody else win a tournament for crying out loud. That's number 3. Number 2. Climate change activists. I get you have a idea and you have a stance you want to, and a podium you want to stand on, no problem. But the way you're doing it, by super gluing yourself to artwork in art museums, is not helping. First of all, no one goes to an art museum anymore anyways. Like, it's ridiculous. Number 2, you're gluing yourself to The Last Supper. The Last Supper? Does that scream climate change to you? No, you should scream yourself to Starry Night, or, like some water-based painting instead. Like, The Last Supper, or the one who threw the cake at the Mona Lisa. There's glass around that thing? You threw it at glass. First of all, you ruined the glass, and I have to go clean it off with Windex, which I'm sure there's plenty of supply in the Louvre of Windex, number 1. And number 2, again, find a painting that makes more sense to have your little climate change stance for. I believe what you want to believe in, no problem, but make it make sense. Which leads me to number 1. Subway, the restaurant chain. They have decided to revamp their menu. And listen, good for Subway. You revamp your menu. You want to make different sandwiches, whatnot. Not a problem here. You know what they're calling their main classic list of sandwiches? The Subway series. That's already been taken by the Mets and the Yankees, Subway. Go get another name for your damn sandwich run. And, while you're at it, bring back Jared Fogle, for crying out loud. That's the only time you were ever successful is when you had him over there. I know he's a problem, but at the same time, that's the only thing you were successful. I look at your food and I say, I'm going to go to Quiznos or Blimpie, or I'm going to make my own sandwich at home instead because I don't trust you. Subway series, terrible marketing. Please change it now. Get away from this baseball. Get away from the Mets and Yankees. Go away. I don't want sweet onion chicken teriyaki. I don't want any of your sandwiches. Leave me alone. I will take your cookies, though. The cookies are very good at Subway. I will say that. They're very nice. They're very soft baked, very, very sweet. And the chip selection's okay, but the Subway, the marketing, nah, not for me. Move on. Get off my lawn, Subway. That's how it is. That's the rant and the podium.
Wow. I threw a couple curveballs. I did not expect some of the takes that we got there, ladies and gentlemen. And on that note, I don't think there's any way to react from that. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you all so much for joining us this week on the Sports Agents of Chaos podcast. From Baker Mayfield to the AFC East to Subways and to Sandoval being here this week as Sandoval's fallen, ladies and gentlemen. The Olympus has fallen. So that marks the end of the podcast this week, ladies and gentlemen. Remember, as always, we come back every single weekend. Next week, we will go over the NFC East. Got some hot takes there for you, to say the least, in terms of who we each have winning the division. And above all else, remember, ladies and gentlemen, when you come here to the Sports Agents of Chaos podcast, we're here. We have some fun. We're here to talk about football, and we are here to spread just a little bit of chaos, or a lot of chaos, in terms of this week's podium. Thank you all so much for joining us. As always, we will be back next week.